Good afternoon, everybody. This is your host, Randy Welsh, the Executive Director for the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance. We're going to hold tight here for just a minute as we allow everybody to get entered into the main area. A few more people are coming. We get them admitted and to get everything queued up and ready for our today's presentation, which is all about the future of NWSA. Which is a pretty bright future. Even if I might not be in it, it still will be pretty bright. You're going to hear more about all that as we go through the presentation today. But we haven't really done a presentation about NWSA in our webinar series, and we thought this is an appropriate time. With me today, I have our board chair, Randy Rasmussen, who's the public lands director for the Country Horsemen of America. We have Dave Cantrell, who is with Poudre Wilderness Volunteers. He's our board member, program chair, program committee, and Mike Splain, who's our treasurer. Works for an organization in California and had previously been the executive director for the Ventana Wilderness Alliance. So we're pleased to have you here today. Hopefully more people will come and want to hear about what the latest and the future plans are for the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance. So what we have in store for you today, we're going to do a little overview of the last 12 years of the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance. And then over the last 6 months, our board and myself have worked with a consultant to really refine and clarify what our goals, our mission, our vision, our strategies moving forward will be. NWSA is at a time of transition, because you've probably heard, I'm retiring. I've been the executive director for the last 6 years, and it's time to pass the torch and move on to other things, mainly involving family. I've got 4 young grandsons from newborn to 6 years old, and there's a lot of demands and attention needed there. And many of you know I like to play golf, and so there's a lot of tournaments that I'm planning on playing this next year and for the last couple of years. But anyways, there's lots of other things in my future, and it just seems like an opportune time to make a transition and to allow NWSA to bring on a more full-time person. I've been working, 10, 20, 30 hours a month most of the time. It's really not enough to really move NWSA to where it needs to be. And so we want to spend more time to grow and prosper our community. So we're going to do a little recap, and then we're going to spend time talking about that mission and vision, what the structure of NWSA is going to look like in the future, and what some of our future plans are, so that in ways that you can be involved and engaged in the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance and the wilderness community, the wilderness stewardship community that we've been creating. So let's go ahead and dive into the presentation, and then we'll spend some time for questions and answers and dialogue at the end of the presentation. Okay. All righty. Well, it does seem strange to say that NWSA has been around now for 12 years. It was started back in 2010. And the things that we do have just gotten, I think, stronger and better over time. The National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance was established to be a support agency, a support organization for wilderness stewardship groups around the country. We were intended to be a voice for the wilderness stewardship community. And through that, our main goal, of course, is to support those wilderness stewardship groups by providing mentoring to new groups, training, help elevate the work that each of the wilderness stewardship groups, their volunteers and their staff are doing, provide resources through our toolboxes, be a mechanism to share the latest and greatest information about wilderness stewardship. Over time, we've entered into a challenge cost share agreement with the U.S. Forest Service to manage 2 different funding programs that most of the stewardship groups probably recognize and interact with us around the 2 funding programs that we have. The Wilderness Stewardship Performance funding, which is provided to stewardship groups so that they can complete the WSP performance elements that are involved and engaged in the wilderness, the Forest Service's strategy for accomplishing wilderness stewardship. And the National Forest System Trail Stewardship Partnership funding, which is geared around doing trail maintenance on the National Forest Trail System. And from time to time, when we've had funding, we've had a boots on the ground funding program, which allows people to gain equipment and supplies, materials to help aid field presence. One of the other major things the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance does is host the National Wilderness Workshop. We schedule these with our sister organization, the Society of Wilderness Stewardship, on a every other year basis, where one of us will take the lead. And we host those gatherings as a way to bring the wilderness stewardship community together, along with the agencies and academics, so that the latest and greatest of wilderness information can be shared. People can network, solutions to problems can be found, and we just build the community into a bigger, more vibrant organization. And of course, we have our website presence to help provide that transfer of information and to make people aware of what's happening within wilderness stewardship. And that includes our newsletters. It includes the webinars that we do, and the resources that we make available to all the organizations. And then we also, one of the things that we do is we partner with other wilderness and trails organizations to both help manage some of our funding programs, but also to keep aware of what the latest things happening in Congress are, things that will affect wilderness stewardship. And we make the wilderness stewardship's voice known when it's needed to help make policy decisions at a national level. So these are all things that the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance does and helps to serve our member organizations, because that's really what we are about. We're a trade association umbrella for over 60 member organizations right now. And the training that we provide, the website, the webinars, all of these things are intended to help support those organizations so that they can do their job better, to provide more connections and linkages that will help them be able to solve their problems and issues in a more efficient, more beneficial way. And we'll talk a little bit more, but we also have the NWSA Fund, which is a way to help new startup organizations get started. So I've mentioned our funding programs. We are super proud and very excited that over the last 7 years, that our first funding program, the Wilderness Stewardship Performance, started back in 2016. So since then, we've distributed over $1.5 million in wilderness stewardship performance funding. And our trails funding has been around just 1 year less, but it's distributed over $1.8 million in trail stewardship, trail maintenance money. To us, this is fantastic. We've essentially almost over $3 million has gone out to the wilderness and trails communities through NWSA's funding program, and just the work that's accomplished and the growth that we've seen in organizations as a result has just been very heartwarming. It's one of the accomplishments I'm going to look back very fondly on in my career, to be able to help these organizations accomplish so much. And not just this money, But this money's been leveraged 3 to 5 to sometimes even 7 to 1 because of the cash and the in-kind contributions that results as resulting because of these projects around the country. And so that's just a tremendous amount, over 10 to 15, even as much as $20 million in activity that's occurred around these partnership programs. The National Wilderness Workshops, you can see, as a way to bring people together. We started these back in 2011 with our first NWSA conference workshop in Las Vegas. And after the 50th anniversary celebration in New Mexico, we went to the alternating schedule for the National Wilderness Workshops. You can see we've held them around the country in various places, helping people to be able to see what's happening in other parts of the country, and to allow people from other parts of the country to maybe participate in these gatherings when they're close by, when they aren't able to make it far away. With COVID, we've had to go to a virtual model for the last couple of years, but this spring we are planning on hosting again another in-person National Wilderness Workshop in Missoula, Montana, the last week of April, and we hope we will see you there. Real quickly, through a special endowment set up by one of our sponsors, we have what we call the NWSA Fund, which supports startup organizations, new wilderness stewardship organizations. We've already provided some funding for Wild Alabama when they started up 2 years ago. This money is in a dedicated endowment fund with the Oregon Community Foundation, and we're letting it build up so that we'll have a significant amount of money, $5,000 to $10,000 the next time I go. So be looking for a call for projects or a call for proposals in the near future. We hope to be able to help a new organization get started here shortly. And as you know, we do this because stewardship is so critically important. All the work that you guys are doing out in your own individual organizations all builds this support for wilderness and support for wilderness stewardship that protects the environment. And it builds a group of advocates that are going to help us carry this wilderness stewardship into the future. So we don't need to speak to the choir on this, but this is why we do what we do. So what's coming next? We've looked at the past, so let's change that around and start looking at what's going to happen in the future. Well, I'm going to go on down the trail. I'm going to retire sometime in 2023. I'll probably be working through a transition as we hire a new executive director. We'll participate in a couple of events this winter and spring, and we'll probably close out sometime around the National Wilderness Workshop in April. But I'm leaving NWSA in a really good place because we have a very strong board, and as a board, we've gone through this process over the last year to update our guiding principles, our mission, our vision, our goals. We've updated our committee structure, and new board recruitment is underway, as well as active ED recruitment. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Randy Rasmussen, our board chair, to talk about some of these processes that we've gone through, what the results are, and what you can expect to see in the next iteration of the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance. Randy?
Great, thanks, Randy. As Randy mentioned at the beginning, I represent the great volunteers of Country Horsemen of America. So we're in 30 states and over 200 chapters, and we do a lot of wilderness stewardship. We took the opportunity with this, transition that Randy mentioned to kind of do a deep search, to kind of make sure we're on track, where we want to go, how to kind of sharpen our focus even more, because of that opportunity to get a full-time executive director, which we hadn't had before, we really wanted to hone in on the realm of possibilities with staff. And so one of the first things we did is this spring, we hired a consultant. And I don't know if folks know Amy Stork from Portland, who was well worth her weight. You know, I mean, it's just amazing product she gave us, because she did help us do that deeper dive and search. And I think she knows us better than we do individually, you know, about board members and staff, because she went about and interviewed our partners, past board members, current board members, Randy and other people, to really get a sense of who we are, what we want to do, our ambitions, our goals, etc. And she reached out to a number of our partner and member organizations too, to kind of get a feedback from the groups that we serve. And one of the first things she did was an organizational function and structure assessment. I won't get into the details. Suffice to say that, you know, we really wanted to have a well-oiled machine, and Amy had the tools and ability to help us, you know, do that. We wanted to lend specific attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion practices and opportunities throughout her analysis and recommendation. So that was a specific ask of us to keep us, you know, on par with the trends in DEI work and what our partners are doing, and making sure we're being sincere about the partners we want to serve now and into the future to make wilderness relevant to all people. And so basically, you know, Amy helped us kind of sharpen our vision, values, and goals. It's nothing radically different, but I think those of you who know and worked with NWSA in the past will say, yeah, this makes sense. This is good. This is all going in the right direction. And so I'll read to you the vision, and we'll have a slide at the end, but really to tighten things and looking for that communications piece, both that we can highlight on our website, in the, you know, 30-second elevator speech type of thing, etc. We just wanted to make sure as a board, we're all on the same page, and that, you know, we're all, you know, saying the same things consistently. So our vision in a nutshell is that, and I'll do a screen share maybe, so I don't have to read it all. But I did notice, Randy, that the screen share wasn't for me picking up the PDF document. So I'll give it one last chance here. Thanks. Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's not picking up my PDF. So let's not do that. I'll just read. It's a single short statement here. Our vision is that America's wilderness and wild places will be stewarded for generations to come through an enduring partnership of public agencies, community-based organizations, and volunteer stewards, and that the benefits of wilderness and wilderness stewardship will be shared equitably. So that's a pretty concise statement of where we think we're going, where we know we're going, where we want to go collectively. And around that vision, we created both values and strategic goals. So if you could, and Randy's got the slide here in terms of the values. I won't read that. I don't know if you can all read it yourselves, but it's accessible on the landing page of our website, those values. And you can keep sharing that if you would, Randy, because I'm bouncing back and forth here. But community, inclusion and equity, and optimism and resourcefulness. So I encourage you to go to the website and look at that in a little more detail of what we mean when we pick these values. I mean, these aren't necessarily universal values that every organization shares, although I'm sure there's a lot of commonality with our partner groups. But again, values are something that are core to what we are, that reflect our specific organization and mission, our desires and goals, and really speaks to who we want to be and in what we want to model going into the future. So I'll just leave it at that. And then around those, we came up with these 4 strategic goals that Randy will share next. And in essence, the goals are expressions of how we're going to, you know, achieve that vision and applying those values. So let me just say, if you captured it well here. Yeah, again, I won't read to you. Maybe I'll give you a second here to just kind of review it yourselves. and see that it's all oriented around NWSA's ability to, provide program delivery to partner organizations. That's our role, as Randy said, and he gave a lot of great examples of what we have been doing for years. I mean, over $3 million in granting on the Forest Service side of the equation has just been fabulous. And, that's just a piece of it. We hope to broaden that beyond the Forest Service and include other federal agencies too. But it is all about partnerships and sustaining an organization that's a great place to work and volunteer. We just want to, enhance and strengthen our networks. And so that's what these exercises have done for us. I think it's been really, again, Amy Stark is worth her weight in gold. And we really are launched in the right direction at this time. So I'm really optimistic that the work we've done, and this has been a lot of committee work that you'll hear about too from Dave, and a lot that the board has given in the past 6 months or so to really try to launch in this new direction, albeit slightly altered, direction, refined direction. I think you're all going to like what we're doing with a very strong strategic focus. So Mike, maybe this is a good time to pass it off to you and talk about how we're updating our structures specifically based on these values and goals.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for coming to you guys through telephone, having some internet problems today, but we'll do our best here. I'll talk to you a little bit about the NWSA structure that we've been updating. And, based on the values and goals that Randy Rasmussen just talked about, NWSA has delegated its workload across a range of committees. Dave Cantrell can tell you a little more about that, but that's just the overview. We're also gearing up to expand our board of directors, and there's currently 9 of us, but our bylaws allow for up to 13 board members, which I hope we can fill all the seats. And we'll be recruiting for specific skill sets, but also with a specific aim to try to diversify our board so that we look a little bit more like the communities that we serve. We're also in the process of recruiting a full-time executive director. Randy Rasmussen will tell you a little more about that later as well. But you guys may not realize, but Randy Welsh has been our quarter-time ED for 6 years. And despite the schedule constraints of quarter time, we know he probably puts in more than that. Randy's always been available to consult with member orgs, expand grant programs, plan the National Wilderness Workshops, and lots of other less evident but equally critical tasks. So we're so grateful to him, but we're also looking forward to the next step with a full-time ED. A little bit about our financial outlook. NWSA's finances are and have always been in the black. We'll continue supporting new stewardship startups through things like seed funding from the NWSA fund. We'll continue delivering for existing stewardship groups and wilderness stewardship through the Wilderness Stewardship Performance Grant Program and Trail Stewardship Grant Program. Meanwhile, we're building up reserves to increase capacity and support a full-time executive director long-term. And for that, we need your help. We hope that you can make sure, keep your NWSA membership current. If you're able to do so, we would be happy to receive an additional year-end gift if that's within your capacity. And also, please help us build our network by reaching out to other wilderness stewardship groups who might benefit from NWSA membership. Let us know. We'll have some contact info at the end where you can share that. That's really all I had to talk about. I'm going to pass it over to Dave Cantrell, who can tell you a little more about committee work.
Hey, thanks. Randy bumped the slide along. Committees are real central to how NWSA has always worked. And that reflects the fact that we are, of course, a volunteer-based organization serving volunteer-based organizations. 3 of our committees, though, are central and internal to board function. The executive committee that acts on behalf of the full board between meetings, the finance committee that we've just been hearing about that oversees the financial health of the organization, and the board development committee that oversees the general health of the board of directors as a whole. And as Mike mentioned, we're currently working to expand the board. But volunteer committee members are a big part of how the organization's work gets done. NWSA is strongly organized around committee functions, and many of our committees have opportunities for new members. And I want to say to the group here, I know many of the people on today's call, and please get out the word to the groups that you work, to the people that you know, and tell them that we are a volunteer organization. We're looking for volunteer participation on the board. It's an exciting time for us as we are taking these next steps to serve the wilderness stewardship community. And as I mentioned our committees here, be thinking about whether you may have a role to play there or whether you know someone who might have a role. The committee names really speak to the functions, so I'm just going to offer very brief descriptions. If you have any questions, please use the chat or contact us afterwards. We have a revenue committee. That's where we develop revenue strategies and assist in partnership and fund development activities of all sorts, fundraising. A communications committee, using a strategic communications plan that we've been developing to advance the visibility not only of NWSA, but of all of the volunteer-based stewardship activity that's going on nationwide. An education committee developing educational programs to match need for the membership. A new cluster committee, member support and stewardship startup, helping member organizations thrive, deal with any issues that come up, and helping new stewardship groups form. And I'll throw in a parenthesis here. We have just started working in the last week with the north zone of the Shoshone National Forest out of Cody. If you have contacts in that area, either within the Forest Service or in the community, please let us know, because we are starting to build that support network to get a group started there. Then we've already mentioned the National Wilderness Workshop Committee. There's a lot of work to be done every year, you can imagine, organizing that conference. We work with the Society for Wilderness Stewardship, but there's always a use for other people who can help with that. So if you have skills, or if you know someone who has skills to handle any of these community functions, please let us know. I am Dave at wildernessalliance.org, dave@wildernessalliance.org, or you can contact any of us, of course, through the website. And finally, one important additional opportunity for involvement from all sorts of people, and a couple of you have already been helpful on this one. We're currently developing webinars for 2023, and we're wanting to design these webinars to match the new clarity of our vision, our values, and our goals. So if you have things that you think, skills that you think you can bring to that, please let us know. Randy, do we have another slide there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's pretty obvious. What we need from you, all of you, join or renew, participate in the committee work. The group that is listening right now, I know something of the range of your skills. We'd love to see you involved. And we may be in contact with you about teaching, presenting a webinar, or supporting the National Wilderness Workshop. But again, if you get work out to your member groups and people you know, we're looking for more help. We're looking to build the strongest possible alliance of volunteer-based help. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Dave. So there you've heard what the future looks like. It's a good future. It's a strong future. And I think we have time now that we will open the floor up for any questions you might have. I think there's a small enough group here that we can just go ahead and have you raise your hand and we'll recognize you and you can shout out your questions. And we'd love to hear what you think about NWSA and what you think our future is. So go ahead and let's open the floor to any questions. My board members will stand by and together we'll come up with a response for you.
In the absence of any questions, I'm happy to kind of briefly talk about our
Oh yeah,
recruitment for
we
the
need to
ED.
talk about the ED search. That didn't come up before. Yeah, go ahead, Randy, before we do that.
Okay. Yeah, and so obviously big shoes to fill. We know this is something that we want to, again, enter into, in a very strategic fashion. So I hope folks have seen the posting on NWSA's website and the ED position description. And at minimum, please pass that along to folks you think might be interested, have those skill sets we're looking for. I can define what some of those might be in a second. But consider it yourself as your partners of NWSA and if that might be a good fit for you. So we issued that announcement on December 3rd, and Amy Stork, again, that consultant, helped us really shape a detailed success profile for that executive director. As reflected in the position description, like detail, brush over its remote.
Yeah, Randy, we're having some technical difficulties with your voice. You're hitting some bandwidth issues, I think. Yeah, we're kind of lost Randy here for a moment. But I think what he's trying to say is that we've put a pretty broad outreach for you could try it again if you think you've got the bandwidth, Randy, but we put out a pretty big outreach, and we've got the ED announcement in 7 or 8 different venues, traditional and non-traditional, looking for the best possible candidate. And we expect that outreach is continuing through the rest of this month, and early January, those applications will be rounded up. I think around the 9th of January, will start to be rounded up and reviewed, and hopefully we'll be able to make a decision sometime toward the end of January with a selection after appropriate review and interviews take place. Randy, are you back? There we go.
Yeah, and I'm going to take my video off. No one wants to see me anyways. So,
okay.
But here's just an example of some of the, in addition to those traditional venues that we're reaching out to in terms of the CED. This is a spreadsheet of all the organizations that we've reached out to date. In our quest to be inclusive and broad in our outlook. So everything like Diversify Outdoors and the groups you're seeing here, the Bridge Program, etc. These are all organizations that have already received our contact, thanks in large part to Sandy Compton on our board and Caitlin D. Verona too, and Katie Currier to doing this outreach. And then there's some traditional ones at the top here that we've reached out to, including LinkedIn, etc. But this again is tried to be an inclusive outreach, and so I think we've done a really good job in terms of that committee that's doing the ED search. So I guess now we can turn to questions, but in a nutshell, and I don't know if folks heard the summary, but the salary we're looking at is $58,000 to $70,000 per year with partial benefits at a remote location.
All right, well, let's open it. I think Kim has got our first question, and she's asked, do you think there's a possibility of working with other land management agencies, including like the Park Service, the BLM, Fish and Wildlife Service? And that has been our ultimate desire to have a full-fledged outreach program that includes all 4 land management agencies. And it's only going to happen as we're able to grab them kicking and screaming into the current age of working with volunteers. And we've been definitely trying to do that. We've had good connections with all of the lead wilderness program leaders for each of those agencies. We continue to talk with them through their steering committees and try to find avenues of ways of expanding our programs, creating funding streams through those other organizations. We've been focused on the BLM here recently, trying to see about their willingness. There's some cultural obstacles, there's some institutional obstacles that each of those other organizations have, and their history and use of volunteers is also a little different than what the Forest Service has worked with. But we still are optimistic that we'll be able to make some inroads there and open up some other avenues for working with those other agencies and getting them more involved in what we do. Dave,
let me jump in on that. We have had MOUs with all 4 agencies since back in 2010. So everything is in place for cooperative work. Most of us know the Forest Service culture better than we know the others. We would love to work with them if there are people out there who can help us build that connection. That would be great.
Yeah, so it definitely is something that we have been working for behind the scenes, just don't have a lot to show for it. Other than the participation that we've been able to get through the National Wilderness Workshop. And, we've always had good representation by all the 4 agencies there. And the connections that get made do bear fruit and show the value of volunteers to some of these other organizations. So we're hopeful, Kim, to be able to continue that. Yeah. So Kelly has asked about the new vision and goals. Will priorities for the funding programs change? And I think the short answer is probably not in the short term. I think we are pretty excited to continue those funding programs. The agencies are willing to fund them and continue them. I think we certainly want to see our focus stay more on the wilderness side of things and the wilderness stewardship performance and support for wilderness trails. That's where our focus and attention will be. I'm not sure how many of you realize that the National Forest System Trail Stewardship Partner Program, we manage it, but we open that up to trails across the whole National Forest System, and that's part of the goals and objectives of that particular program. But we know that there's a unique benefit for wilderness trails through that funding program. And I'm happy to say that, we've been able to garner 40 to 50% of those funds for wilderness trails over the years. So I'm pretty excited to continue to do that. So don't be shy. If you'd like to ask a question, just bring yourself into the conversation. Take yourself off mute and raise your hand. We'll let you talk. And I think we'd like to hear from you as to, what your thoughts about NWSA are and how can we better support you in your efforts there locally.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I did have another question. Randy, I think you had shared like a strategic plan document when you showed the vision and goals. Mm-hmm. That's something external or that you all have shared somewhere?
It's on our website. It's
okay.
It's on the opening page of the website.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it lays out in a pretty succinct form what the vision, the mission, the values, and then our strategic goals and strategies for achieving those goals will be for the next 3 to 5 years. Any other questions? Other board members? Any additional comments you'd like to make?
Sounds like I get to go to my holiday party a little early.
All right, and Randy is just listed the location for that strategic direction document. Yeah, please take a look at it. It will show you kind of what we think is important moving the organization forward, and it will also provide you some clues, some indications of where you might want to get involved. Because we are an organization that exists to service our members, to service the community of wilderness stewardship around the country. And it's only through your volunteer efforts and support that we are able to continue to do that. And thank you, Kim. We're glad that we could help support your organization. So Pete, I saw that you left and came back, so I must have got kicked off somehow. I'm sure you got a comment that you'd like to make.
Randy, I just say thank you and congratulations. Thank you for your service, as well as all of the NWSA board members. You know, it's important to have this kind of a group that doesn't get many headlines, but does some key work behind the scenes, I think. And I know you've slogged away in the trenches and helped a lot of folks in a lot of ways that don't get a lot of publicity sometimes. So well done, sir.
Well, thanks, Pete. All right. Well, any other thoughts, comments before we close out this webinar today? Well, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and we'll make a final closing statement here, and then we'll sign off. And it's been my pleasure to serve and act as your executive director for the last 6 years, part of a wonderful organization, a great group of people who have been on the board over the years, all, you know, friends and colleagues within the wilderness stewardship community. I'm really excited that NWSA will continue to go into the future, that it's a strong organization with lots of energy behind it and lots of great history. And I know that that's just going to continue to grow and grow. I keep hoping that one day I'm going to win the lottery and we can put up a long-term fund to benefit a wilderness stewardship. But you can help do that today with your nickels and your dimes, your dollars, to add to the NWSA fund as a starting point for continuing to grow other wilderness stewardship organizations around the country. And I think that through all of our multiple efforts with the 200 plus different organizations, we'd certainly like to see NWSA grow from the 60 plus groups that it is now to over 100. I think that's a pretty easy lift as we look around the country. So if you are a part of a group that's not currently a member, then think about joining. And if you know some other groups out there that aren't members, then ask them to join and be a part of the broader community. So we're real excited on what our potential future can be. And again, working with the other agencies adds another element of potential that we can mine for future growth. So Randy, go ahead. I think.
Well, and lastly, please help us celebrate Randy's tenure. We're going to have at the National Wilderness Workshop in late April a couple of events, including a reception to honor Randy. So, you know, help us applaud this great work and the way he has moved NWSA fast forward in 6 years' time to be an amazing, you know, service provider for wilderness stewardship. organizations. You'll have your chance in Missoula to share your thanks with Randy then too.
Well, that's going to be interesting. Surprise. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for coming today to hear about the future of NWSA. Look forward to seeing and hearing more from each of you in the days to come. We've still got a lot of work to do before April. We're closing out the 2022 Wilderness Stewardship Performance and the Trail Partner Funding. All of those projects are, some of them are coming to a close. Some of them were extended till spring, early summer, because of the lateness of funding this year. But we're looking forward to seeing the results of this year's programs and the funding that came forward. If you're interested to see what the results of past year's projects were, those are on our website under the trail funding and the wilderness stewardship performance funding pages. You can look up some of the previous reports from past years and see kind of the work that's done. And then we fully expect to have our funding programs available in 23. So be looking in January, mid-January, for the next round of funding programs that NWSA will support. And with that, we'll go ahead and sign off for now and look forward to seeing you all in the near future. So take care, everybody. Have a happy holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.